The pain of inflation is very real, and the outgoing Treasury Secretary is now apologizing for her role in contributing to it. I'll explain why and how we should protect ourselves with gold and silver as we explore. Yes, an apology, or the next best thing to it, has now been issued by the outgoing Treasury Secretary. I'm going to be referencing a piece here by Zero Hedge, as shared with me by Silver Heist. But when we think about high costs of things these days and what contributes to it, and the difference between high prices, well, we know that precious metals are there to protect us. And when you ever want to elevate your wealth, it's to do so in order to protect against inflation. This is where my friend Summit Metals comes into play. Summit Metals, they are a relatively new company that sponsors the channel, and they have a lot of great deals and fast shipping out there from summitmetals.com. So I hope you will check them out. Now, outgoing Treasury Secretary and former Fed Chair and Vice Chair Janet Yellen has spoken with Donald Trump's nominee to be her successor, Scott Bessent, after he was selected for the job. During a Tuesday event a couple weeks ago, organized by the Wall Street Journal, Yellen said in a call before Thanksgiving, she told Bessent, a veteran hedge fund manager, and the breadth of the job and the strength of the department's staff. Yellen, who had never worked one day in the private sector, let alone as a hedge fund manager or anywhere near a hedge fund, where you are only as good as your last trade and only successful if you're outsmart most of your peers. She reiterated previous warnings against encroaching on the Federal Reserve's independence and broad tariff hikes, while expressing regrets on the fiscal situation. What research has shown, and this is certainly what I see from my own experience, is the countries perform better. They have not only inflation performance, but real performance in terms of job creation and growth, is also stronger when a central bank is left to use its best judgment about political influence, Yellen said, apropos of nothing, as the Fed is and always has been a political entity to be used and abused by whoever's in power. Case in point, Yellen, like her predecessor, Ben Bernanke, kept rates too low for too long so that her Democrat overlords could enjoy periods of relative tranquility, while also spawning what would soon be the biggest financial crisis in U.S. history. Now, that's a biased statement, obviously, but still, I think the Fed has become politicized, and it has been for quite a while. And what was not funny about that, which has occurred, but what was that Yellen also expressed regret over failing to make more progress in narrowing the fiscal deficit during her tenure. Well, what anything has she done in order to do that is my question. I'm concerned about fiscal sustainability, and I'm sorry that we haven't made more progress, she said, adding that I believe that the deficit needs to be brought down, especially now that we're in an environment of higher interest rates. First, it was under Janet Yellen's watch that the U.S. experienced the biggest debt increase in history. Yellen was the Fed chair from October 2010 until February 2014, and then was picked for her political ideology. And so it's one of those things where it's supposed to be an apolitical appointment. We say apolitical because in January 2021, the mask essentially came off then. And Yellen was picked for her political ideology to serve as Biden's top debt printing Democrat by taking control of the U.S. Department of Treasury, where on more than one occasion she intentionally manipulated U.S. debt issuance to boost risk assets at the expense of a harrowing debt crisis that looms under Trump's administration, as trillions of debt now have to be rolled over at a much higher rate. But more to the point, under Yellen, total U.S. debt increased by $6.8 trillion while she was the Fed chair and vice chair, which that's what she was, for part of that tenure there. And then another $8.4 trillion while she had been Biden's Treasury Secretary. And this is why we've got this note here. Look at all the inflation that has occurred since then. That's her signature there. This dollar is worth a whole lot less at the time of the printing of this dollar bill than this dollar bill was when it was printed. Well, when it was printed, which is somewhere during the administration of Donald Trump. And of course, we look back through history where essentially, if this went back into 2000 or 1913, it would be worth almost as much as this today. Let that sink in. That's pretty amazing how much the erosion of our dollar has come along all these years. So when you think about that, Yellen has personally presided over a gargantuan $15.2 trillion increase in the U.S. debt, which is what contributes to inflation because of more money being printed. That's about 42% of all the U.S. debt that has ever been issued. No other government official can make even a remotely similar claim. So that, and again, there has been spending by Republicans as well. Republicans will spend just as easily as Democrats will these days, and it has been the case, but hopefully that will change with Doge. But we have a long way to go to make progress there. Obviously, the new administration has not been sworn in yet. So the world certainly has every reason to be concerned about fiscal sustainability, but the last person allowed to seek accountability is Yellen, who was the one person in the U.S. most directly complicit in making U.S. fiscal sustainability a huge joke. And no, saying she is sorry just will not cut it, especially considering that she thinks that DEI and ESG should be part of the Fed official policy. We know that is completely and purely political. The second reason why Janet Yellen's words are essentially grotesque is that in the final days of Biden administration, which is best known for spending trillions to buy votes in the U.S. And also in Ukraine, has decided to go out with a bang, and at a time when government spending is hitting new record high month after month to the tune of $1 trillion every 100 days, and that's only picking up. We look at what's happening and what's with the money printing. It's crazy. That's another directive towards inflation, and this is why inflation has ticked up yet again with the latest numbers that have popped out. The U.S. has just started its latest fiscal year with the biggest 2 months increase in the budget deficit in the entire record of these numbers being reported. $642 billion deficit for October and November. That's crazy. That's the worst start of a new fiscal year in the history of the United States. U.S. interest expense is now over $1 trillion now. It's $1.2 trillion just for interest alone, which is the second largest government outlay surpassing defense and health spending, and is just one more debt crisis and more interest rate spike away from exceeding Social Security spending as the largest government outlay for the world's most indebted government. It's insane. So Janet saying we're sorry under your various official tenures of the U.S. took irrevocable steps to losing the world's reserve currency. And this is gold and Bitcoin. And sorry that the U.S. is just a few months away from being the biggest financial crisis in history. We also realize that it is at 78, your forecast that there will be no major crisis in your lifetime is one way or another likely spot on. We may be pulling ourselves literally back from the brink, even though no one can see it yet. We're still kind of the calm before the storm. And that storm could come, and it likely may be by design to hit during Trump's first 100 days. With all the spending and everything that's coming there, and it may be too much for Trump to stop in time. We'll see. He's got a big, huge task ahead of him, that's for sure. But notwithstanding, no matter what happens, gold and silver really are the answer to stopping for us personally, to be our own central bank to protect ourselves. 2024 has been a banner year for gold and, yes, even silver, in spite of some pullbacks recently. Silver, indeed, will preserve your wealth. It's up dramatically this year, well over 20%, even with some of the pullbacks we've seen. That's outperforming inflation, especially for this year. So let that really digest in your belly that gold and silver will preserve your wealth. And that's really the bottom line here, folks. They are the ultimate weapon against inflation and money printing out there, because, you can print these, but more likely most of the money that's being, quote, printed is really just digitized. And they're going to ramp that up, and they're going to keep doing it. That's what they're doing now until such a time as we move in the opposite direction. Literally, we do need to literally move in the opposite direction to stop all this government spending. It's insane. No matter what your ideology is, this really should be an unsustainable path forward. Because if it's a hidden tax on us all. We're all hurt by inflation. I don't care how rich you are. I don't care what your political ideology is. Inflation is a harbinger of worse things to come, especially at the spending that they've been doing this year. So is she really sorry? I don't think so. So there you have it. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.